Well, I do want to thank the folks that are here today. Thank you for being here. I do have you all muted and off camera, which is perfect. So I want to, if anyone needs privacy or they're just, after a long day's work, you just wanted to chill and relax. I know that feeling. That's a good thing. So I'm going to wait just a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Maybe another minute, not a few more minutes. But thank you for being here tonight. And I always like to think that Spirit arranges things for a reason, so just the perfect amount of people are here. Okay, and if I do get distracted with some technical stuff, it just means I see that somebody else has entered and I just need to let them in. But I want to thank let's see, Dave, Lori, and Jacob for being here. And today is about talking about connection, how to connect, how to stay focused on spirit, whether it be those that have crossed over that we're missing, or even if we want to connect to our own spirit. We all have one. We generally ignore it because of our physical brains. We're always thinking about, I have to get up, have to go to work, have to pay my bills, have to do laundry. I'm sad, I'm missing my loved one. Woulda, shoulda, couldas, guilt, or you're hard on yourself. Or even in life, if we attract the same things or there's a physical disappointment, um, the brain will start ruminating and creating false scenarios. So, how do we get out of that loop? By using, I believe, what we all have. I believe we're all intuitive. We all have the ability to connect. I also believe that, again, if we're missing someone, we have a wonderful spirit within us that can connect to our loved ones. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And hopefully, I know I have a couple of questions here too from folks that gave questions. And I think I just have to double check and make sure. Yep, everybody's in. Nice small group. I love it. Um, and we will go over that right now. We'll get started. So again, thank you for joining me. And the hopefulness at the end of this Zoom chat is that you will walk away with hopefully a more open viewpoint on, if you're missing someone, my loved one is right here, I sense them, or I'm really wanting to amp up my life for 2026. How do I do that? And you have more tools for that. So what I would like to first talk about is something wonderful, and that's you. You have a spirit within you. And when I was drawn to this work, and I'd never thought that I would be doing this work, but when it came my way, it really resonated with something different. It wasn't resonating with my mind, it was resonating with what I'd like to call the spiritual heart, at least mine. We all have that too. But I'm sure you've met some people that have never touched empathy, right? It's not that they can't get in tune with their spiritual heart. It's just that hurting people do hurting things, excuse me. So I'd like to refer to the whole spiritual self that we have as the energy person. And this energy person within us is something that we're not always aware of. And we walk on this planet looking physically to make things right, or we need to feel powerful and change something that doesn't look right. And Spirit once said to me, any great physical talent that's meant to be used for the world is a wonderful thing, but any physical talent overused will eventually tire the body. And that's why using the empowerment of who we are, which power is how we use our physical body, empowerment is how we use our spiritual body. And the energy person is comprised, you might be aware of this already, of many wonderful abilities. Um, we aren't aware of those abilities, but we use them every day. Or if we are using them or something does happen, it happens so quickly within our spiritual body um, that we don't notice it because the physical body takes over right away. We'll start analyzing, oh, was that a coincidence? Or, oh, I had a gut feeling about that, but did that really happen? Or somebody picks up a penny and they go, my gosh, I think that's from my mom that passed. And then the brain says, you sure about that? So we get these sensations, but because we haven't learned to slow them down and recognize them, our brains take over and analyze it. And before you know it, we're either talking ourselves out of a sign or talking ourselves out of talking to that person because they're a great contact to our career, but when we have a gut feeling about them, but the brain says, no, no, don't talk to them. You'll make a fool of yourself. So we've got, two things going on constantly. And we normally just pay attention, not to the energy person, but we pay attention to, of course, our brains. We have to, we're physical. But the energy person is comprised of many wonderful things. Most of you may have heard of the chakras, and most of you may have heard of the metaphysical senses. Hold on, let me admit this person. Um, and so the chakras and the metaphysical senses can and do work hand in hand, but they are separate things. So the first place that we can go to if we're wanting to either reach someone in spirit or be more intuitive is having this knowledge of the energy person, but learning how they exist within us so that when we do have a metaphysical experience, we recognize it. It does go to the brain, excuse me, remnants of my illness. It does go to the brain immediately. We'll analyze it. But I recall when I was starting to study personally and then eventually professionally, that was something I had to work on is slowing it down. Don't analyze it right away. What was that sensation? How did I receive it? How did it come to me? And if you become a good student of energy, I want you to say to yourself, I'm a student of energy. I'm going to try to understand the energy person within me. You can become more intuitive and you could become more of a personal medium to yourself when you want to reach someone that you're missing. So first, it's the energy person in the energy system. So what is that? So we have metaphysical senses that are within us. I'm sure most of you have had a gut feeling before, right? I'm sure some of you have had an experience where you might hear a song in your head and then you walk in the grocery store and it's playing. Or you excuse me, you think of somebody's name and then you run into them. You hear their name and there they are. Um, I'm sure most of you have had a deja vu. Um, these main metaphysical senses of clairsentience, which is clear feeling, or would be attributed to a gut feeling or the feeling of a presence of someone or something. Clairaudience is the ability to hear energy, somebody's name. So sometimes a precognizance of, oh, I'm hearing the song, there it is. From your loved ones, they can put songs in your ears. They can talk to you within your own head voice, but you'll hear them. Um, and clairvoyance is the ability, if it's mediumship, your loved ones can put images in your mind. If it's um, more precognitive or psychic, you can have a deja vu. You could be sleeping at night because your brain is shut off, and then you wake up and go to work and go, oh my gosh, I've lived this before. Well, really, you've dreamt it before. You have the ability to dream the future. We'll talk about dreams a little later. But that's a part of clairvoyance. Okay. Um, Two other senses, which it depends on if you're speaking professionally or personally. Um, if we go personally, the ability for clairambiance or clairalience. Clairambiance is the ability to taste things through spirit. They can make you taste their favorite food. Um, Clairalience is the ability to smell their perfume or smell cigarette smoke. Um, when it comes to psychic work, there are some psychics, and I am not one of them. I am a psychic, but when I do someone's future or I work with their energy, I see, hear, and feel it. I don't necessarily smell and taste your future, but there are wonderful, talented psychic detectives, if you would, or those that work on missing person cases. That's something I do not do. I work more on missing souls or people are off on their path and they want to amp up their life. But for those psychic detectives, some of them can taste the last meal the missing person ate, or they could smell where the perpetrator is. It's pretty remarkable. Um, how can you use that in your life? I don't know. I don't know. Not psychically. Um, However, with your loved ones, and this is just my opinion, it's a very strong sense, isn't it? When you're sitting down, maybe on the couch, and there's nothing physical to make you think of that loved one, and all of a sudden you might smell their perfume. You know, it's they're trying to get your attention. So seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, and tasting are mediumistic or spirit senses to contact your loved ones. Seeing, hearing, and feeling from within, if you wish to tune into yourself and get a sense of your future or amp up your true self versus the false self that you show in the physical world to attract what you'd like. I hope that makes sense. So, understanding the metaphysical senses and adding them to meditation, prayer, or daydreaming. Whenever we pray, daydream, or meditate, we're taking the thoughts of the mind and kind of pushing them away. So I'd like to call that the spiritual muscle. Developing your spiritual muscle versus the muscle of the brain, which, if you're healthy and you're still blessed to be here in the physical world, is a very strong organ to fight. And if you're grieving or you're in a bad place in your life or you feel kind of knocked down physiologically, um, it's a hard thing to fight against. So I often say grieving is normal. You can't fix normal. You could learn to work through grief, work through it, or learn to manage it. But those feelings are going to stay there. Some people learn to manage them through the years, but developing this spiritual muscle of the metaphysical senses or understanding the chakras, which are seven energy, we have many chakras, but seven main um, energy centers in the body. It's Sanskrit for spinning wheel of energy. And you have the ability to manipulate these chakras to actually also, if you'd like, to either center yourself through a meditation, or you can also connect some of the chakras with the metaphysical senses. For example, one chakra is a solar plexus chakra, and it's located just below the heart, right where you get a gut feeling. You know that place where you're like, "Ooh, I'm feeling something." That gut feeling area, that's where your personal power is. Um, One way to explain it physically, if you've ever received horrible news or you're fearful of something, sometimes it drops right there. The physicality just goes boom right in your stomach. And there's ways to manipulate the personal power chakra to actually battle that a bit. So that's, you could use chakras to resist or even coexist with physical feelings. It's another topic. But when it comes to matching them with metaphysical senses, for example, clairsentience, which is clear feeling of spirit or clear feeling of your future or presently being clairsentient and I know where I need to be psychically, um, is the same place where the solar plexus chakra lives. So, for example, I could be doing a session, let's say psychically for someone, and I might feel or sense something about their solar plexus chakra. Oh, I'm sensing they got a gut punch or there's something positive or and then in my solar plexus I'll receive it to give information to validate them. It's the same thing too with the throat chakra. The throat chakra is located exactly where I'm pointing, near the throat. And it's a spinning wheel of energy as well. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, I do this sometimes too. I try to get myself out of the habit of it. And I've gotten better as I've aged and worked 25 years in this field, is that you might see some mediums go, I'm hearing a j, j, g, ja, g, g, or j, 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 j. It's like you can't quite hear the name. Sometimes the name comes easily, or it just goes by you really quickly, like a baseball whizzing by you, and that happens sometimes. But it resonates here first before you hear it. The throat chakra almost buzzes a little more, and you hear it and you want to say it, so that they're kind of connected to me. I don't know if that has ever happened to anyone or if you've ever seen other mediums say this or do that, but that's another one I believe that's very strongly connected to the metaphysical senses. The next one is clairvoyance. We spoke about that when we spoke about metaphysical senses. The clairvoyant area and the third eye chakra, which I'm sure you've seen those famous metaphysical paintings or pictures of two eyes and a third eye in the forehead. Um, the third eye chakra is clear seeing, the ability to see clearly. And of course, clairvoyance is pretty much the same, seeing the future clearly or seeing an image from the other side. So those three chakras, even though there are seven, I'll go over them. I'll go over all of them quickly, but the three main ones, especially with mediumship and psychic work, or if you wish to amp up your own abilities naturally in your personal life, is the solar plexus chakra linked to clairsentience. The I'm forgetting all of a sudden. Why am I tuning into someone? The throat chakra, which is to clairaudience, and clairvoyance connected to the third eye chakra. The other chakras start from the base of the spine. They all do. They all line up and go up and over your head. So when we think of the foundational chakra, they're at the base of the spine. Then the next one, just above the base of the spine, is the sacral chakra, just below the belly button. Then the next one is the solar plexus chakra, which we spoke about. Then above that is the heart chakra. Then the throat chakra, third eye chakra, and then the chakra of knowledge, which is above you. It's almost like when you amp, one technique is to open up and amp up all of your chakras to receive spiritual knowledge. So really quickly, if we go ask ourselves, what is my foundation right now, which is the first chakra? How can I be creative about it, which is the sacral chakra? How can I feel my power in it, which is solar plexus? What are my feelings about it? What do I need to say about it? How can I see it clearly? Give me the spiritual knowledge to help. That's one way you can use the chakras. As a practitioner, when I sit with folks, my chakras are open. I've meditated. I've felt or take a moment to feel all of my abilities of feeling, hearing, seeing, tasting, and smelling. If it's a mediumistic reading, if it's a future reading, I try to see, hear, and feel openly. And as I receive information, my chakras are spinning, and I can sense if there's chakras spinning. Your chakras are always open, but how quickly or slowly something is spinning might tell a psychic, oh, their heart chakra is a little closed right now. And then you might see a romantic figure, and the evidence might be, oh, I sense you're going through a romantic issue right now, or a bump. That's how that would happen psychically. If the other side is coming through, how that might work using the clairsentience, for example. I feel a very gentle male here. He makes me feel very fatherly. I sense your father is passed. Now, again, it's a very interpretive thing. A father figure might mean something different for me than it might mean for you, depending on the physical world experiences you've had. But from my viewpoint, my job is to represent what they're making me see, hear, and feel. So sometimes the loved one coming through will actually size up the medium in a way. I always feel sized up, meaning, okay, well, how can we work with her? What does she think a father figure is? And depending on the personality of who's passed or how they approached people, how a spirit or a loved one might approach me will tell me a lot about what kind of a person they were here. I've had people address me angrily, and it isn't that anger lives in spirit, it's they're trying to show me they were an angry person here. Or I've had helpful spirits, which mean while they were in their bodies, they were able to access empathy and love and patience, and they're showing that to me as evidence of their personality. And let me just get slightly off topic. Some people ask me, does evil exist? Everyone has a different viewpoint on that. The reason why I'm saying that is I believe that while we're walking on this earth, evil exists through people, because hurting people do hurting things, or sometimes DNA hands someone the wrong chemistry in their brain and they can't touch empathy. And I believe whether you did good things or bad things here, when you pass, you do your life review through your loved ones, and through your loved ones living, oh, I was a good person, or, oh, I needed to work on that relationship. All the anger, the inability to forgive, jealousy, worry, fret, disease, self-medication, whatever degree you had of that, bad or little, dies with the body. It's a physiological thing because we're angry because we're reacting to something in the physical world. I didn't get the job. I got cheated out of this. I'm angry. Those are animalistic responses that die with the body. So love, patience, kindness, forgiveness, self-control, joy, happiness, all those things that are so important. I say that because when we're on our dying bed, we're not, that adage, we're not going to think about our checkbook. We're thinking about, did we love? Do we have people here loving me? That's the meat and the beauty of why we're here, is to have those connective, wonderful, peaceful, contented sensations and spiritual experiences while we're in our bodies. Some people don't experience that. It's sad. But I believe they get a second chance. That's just my belief. I've had spirits come through and say that. And they'll be speaking to the person who's grieving and saying, thank you for being so kind to me, even though I was very nasty as I was sick and I could never say thank you, or whatever it might be. Or vice versa. We didn't have a good relationship. You weren't nice to me. They'll say that to people living. I have to deliver that. And they're like, yep, that's true. I wasn't nice. I go, okay. Um, uh, but we all have second chances. Um, and I believe we can start with those second chances while we're still in our bodies. If we recognize we're going somewhere, We're going to meet up with people that we haven't seen in a while, or we're going to meet people that we've never met before. We're part of a whole lineage and a spiritual DNA, so to speak, that gets carried on generations and generations, and you're a part of that. So, how did you carry that on? Did you? Are you? Can that give you motivation to be a kinder, more wonderful person, even despite your hurts or the people around you? The more you practice this, which is hard to do, that spiritual muscle, but the more you practice this, the more of a medium you could be, or the more of a psychic you can be to yourself. Um, you're closer to spirit that way. No one's perfect. I'm far from perfect. Um, but I try to honor spirit, my loved ones that I'm missing. For example, my mother was a patient woman, had 5 kids. She never raised her voice. I still go, I'm like, how'd you do that? 5 kids? So when I want patience, I plug into my mom. When I want to learn mercifulness, I plug into my mom. Forgiveness, I plug into my mom. And when I do that, I can connect to her. It kind of gives grief a black eye. And then I'll get information from her. I'll go out in the world, I'll see the penny, and then there'll be the other things she's trying to tell me. Because we always just look for the sign and we go, thank you. But what else are they trying to say? They have a lot more to say than penny, penny, penny sung on the radio. Trust me on that. So, um, understanding the energy person within you will help you discern the difference between, was that really you, to I know that was you because I spent time with you and I sensed it. And then you're backing it up with a big sign, not just a penny. There's more there. When I do experiments, or when I have done experiments with scientists, one such experiment, the triple blind study, the third part was the scientist or the bereaved asking direct questions to their loved ones, and the conversation that would happen. There's not much of a conversation in the beginning of a mediumship session when you're just saying, for good reason, to the client, just say yes or no. I don't want you to give me additional information. We're respecting the integrity of the reading, so you walk out going, I didn't tell her anything, and there was my loved one. But at the end, because of that experiment, at the end of sessions when I work with folks, I have you ask questions to your loved ones so you can have a conversation. And I'm also hopeful it'll encourage you to ask questions when you go home, because your loved ones are always connected to you. A medium's not powerful. We don't make them come through. They're with you. That's where the empowerment is. Remember that too. Let love win, and you'll be a better medium for yourself. You have to honor grief, though. I understand that, but I believe we all can connect to our loved ones. So let's talk about the different kinds of ways you can connect to your loved ones. I believe 3 of the main ones. One is definitely through dreams. Another is what I like to call mind to spirit communication. And the third kind is spirit to spirit communication. So let's go with dreams first, because I'm sure some of you might have had an experience where a loved one was there, or you had a deja vu. Um, if we think about the different levels of consciousness we can have, um, one could be, I'm shifting my consciousness, I'm meditating, praying, or daydream. Another could be when someone has a near-death experience. That's a different level of consciousness because they're dying. They touch heaven, paradiso, the other side, whatever your belief system, but they're still coming back. So there's survival of consciousness when we die, but they're still kind of skating in between this world, the physical world, and the other side. When you dream at night, it is a deep form or different level of consciousness, in my opinion, because you're shutting off the physical senses. When you're sleeping at night, you're not aware of the physical around you. You're shutting down. Your brain and your physiological systems are taking over to repair itself. So, Spirit once said to me, when the brain gets weaker, the spirit gets grander. Those are the different levels of consciousness. Every day when we're awake, our brains are stronger, but our spirit is weaker because if the brain is ruminating, you can't connect to your spirit. You can, but it's a harder muscle to separate. So, for example, you're thinking, "Got to pay my bills, have to go to work, got to call so and so," and in between there, your loved one could be saying, "I'm here, hello, like talk to you, hello," but you're like too much in your brain. Grief can do that too. And again, that's normal. You can't fix normal. So the idea of shutting down or closing off the physical senses through meditation, prayer, daydreaming, or dreaming. So dreaming is definitely a very strong one. There's three kinds of dreams. There's physical life dreams. You know those dreams you have that you're flying and your teeth are falling out and you're naked? You know those kind of dreams? We've all had them, right? Um, that's usually your brain defragging something. That's an old computer term from the 90s. Defragging means to reorganize your charts, so to speak, or your thoughts, or your feelings, or your files, so to speak. And that's why sometimes you have wackadoodle dreams because you're wackadoodle, where did that come from? Wackadoodle dreams because you're trying to figure out life, your physical life dreams. The next kind of dream is a spiritual dream. I'm sure, hopefully, you've had them where it's smooth and clear and your loved one is right there. You might be able to smell them or hug them or you see them. Then there's a combination dream. And usually a combination dream might go like this. Let's say if it's connected to the other side. Um, And I've had a dream like this where I go to bed at night and my mother is right there. I can see her and she's beautiful. She shows herself lately much younger than I am. And it's because I sometimes still think of her with stage 4 cancer. And she's trying to show me, hey, I'm like this. I don't have cancer anymore. Stop it. Um, and then my head will say, but you're dead. How could this be you? This is so real. And then my mother might turn into a monster. Well, the monster represents grief. My thoughts of, hey, you're dead. So your loved ones will always come to you very smooth and vibrant. And usually you wake up from when there's a visit of, oh my gosh, I sense you. I still feel like you're with, like, it's a real experience because you have gone into such a deep state of sleep and your consciousness, or I should say, your physical brain is separating a bit because you're not aware of your surroundings, and your spirit gets grander. You're not dying, so to speak. When somebody passes, that's what happens. Their brain gets weaker, their spirit gets grander. We live conversely. I'll say it again. Very mind centric, rarely have a psychic moment. So if we think about practicing, gee, I'd like to visit you in my dreams. What do? Good sleep, deep sleep. Before you go to bed at night, maybe take a hot bath, meditate, pray, take all of your worries or ruminations, lock them in an imaginary black box in your mind and say, it'll be waiting for me in the morning, because it will. All the negativity or what you're worried about in the physical world. And ask your loved one a question as you drift off to sleep. See what happens. That is a great way to connect. And I often recommend that to folks for people whose grief is still raw or they've been ruminating for a long time and they can't manage their grief because it's very hard. It's like learning a new language, being a medium or a psychic, for yourself. I'm sure if I jumped into whatever job you do, I couldn't do it in one day. It takes time, practice, and dedication, and a desire. And I'm sorry that if you've lost someone, that desire is there for that reason. But I do believe you can learn. Um, but I often recommend dreaming first if that grief is strong, because it's hard to pull that muscle away if you haven't had a loss, right? We don't walk around all psychically in tuned, and most of us don't. As a matter of fact, when I'm doing my everyday life, I'm not tuned in. I'm saving that for my clients or when I want to connect to my mom. That's the practice of psychically protecting yourself. You have to as a practitioner. You can't be on all the time. You won't be good for your clients. So the ability to understand I'm grieving heavy right now. I need to honor my grief. Maybe it's best I try to see you in my dreams tonight, or I'm having a better day today. I still miss you, of course, but I'm managing my grief better. Let me meditate and spend some time with you. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I always go to my mother's kitchen and I spend time with her there. Ask her questions, try to see, hear, feel, taste, and smell something, see what advice she has, and it always shows up. Or want to give grief a black eye? My mother was a patient woman. I plug into her patients. Well, I'm jumping ahead, so we'll talk about spiritual purpose in a moment. So the other two ways to connect are mind to spirit or spirit to spirit. Mind to spirit is what most of us do. I miss you. Oh gosh, I'd love to see you. All normal feelings. And we say, please send me a sign. So we're trying to connect to them with our feelings in our mind. Is it possible? Yes. You can get a penny, a song on the radio, a feather, and if that's all you need and it helps you, beautiful. But 90% of the time, you will question it. Was that really you? Maybe someone just dropped the penny, because that's how the brain works. The brain protects the physical body, so it's always questioning, always. It's function. Um, So if if that suits you, nothing wrong with that. If the signs help you give grief a black eye, and you could also manage your grief, nothing wrong with that. So mind to spirit. What I've been tasked, I feel, by spirit to teach folks is, let me see if there's somebody else here. No, okay, I want to be sure I'm not missing anyone. Um, I thought somebody went aboard. Um, Sorry, hold on for a second. Oop, 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 oop. Cancel. I just lost you. I don't believe this. Did I just lose you? Shoot. Hang in there. I'm coming back. I'm a coming back. Here I am. Thought I lost you there for a second. Sorry. Just my screen fell. I apologize. You're so lovely to stay. Um, So, spirit to spirit, which I feel is what spirit has tasked me to do in a beautiful way. And I should say on the side, I believe those of the other side, when they agree to work with the living, they often have a theme with them or um, size up the medium and try to send a message to help the living. Um, I feel Spirit has honored me to teach others how to do spirit to spirit communication. I believe everyone that's watching right now and listening has the ability to contact their loved ones on their own. You don't need a professional medium. I don't think I have a gift. I have an ability. I feel this ability is something I've honed in on because I've spent time on it. It's a passion of mine. But I've spent time on it. Maybe I have the gift of wanting to help people, but I don't think this is a gift because if it was a gift, it would have, it would be, it wouldn't be growing. Like when somebody gives you a scarf, it doesn't grow as a gift, right? It stays a scarf. Um, I can see my abilities and how they've changed and hopefully will continue to grow because I don't know it all. Through the years I've been doing this, and I had one of the best compliments somebody gave me. I feel honored to be the first medium certified by the Forever Family Foundation in 2005. And there's a core of people that have been there since then. And I think it was 10 years ago, one of the organizers came up to me and he said, Angelina, I didn't believe it when I first heard you say this 10 years ago, that you think you have an ability and it's not a gift. Because I can't wrap my head around that. You speak to those that have crossed over. Not everybody can do that. However, I've watched you over the last 10 years, and I have seen your ability grow. And it was such a compliment because I truly believe that. And if I didn't believe that, then I wouldn't believe anybody could do this, that you're gifted with it, you're born with it, nobody else can have it. I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing that. Now, are some people born more open empathically? Yeah, sure. Um, can spiritual DNA from generations be passed on to someone and they're more aware of spirit earlier than someone else? Sure. That's not a gift, it's an ability. So I want to encourage you to work on your spirit to spirit ability. Now, how do you do that? Meditation, prayer, and daydreaming. Very important that you spend some time in the quiet. I always say this, and it's so true. They are not in the noisy, your loved ones are not in the noisiness of your grieving mind. Grief lives in the mind, love lives in your spirit. They're in the quiet of your spirit. And if you take some time and work on that spiritual muscle, also understanding how your body receives information, we'll talk about that too. I know I spoke about the energy person and the different stuff, but certain people receive information certain ways when you're starting to develop, and you'll get encouraged if you know that strongest ability in the beginning. But spirit to spirit communication can go like this. Um, okay, I I have the intention right now of wanting to reach so and so, because you have hundreds of people connected to you. Some you know, some you don't. They're part of your soul group, your spirit group. I want to reach so and so. And there's two different ways to kind of go somewhere, but I'll talk about that in a moment. And then once you have the intention, the spirit to spirit is, well, I'll go there now. What was my spiritual purpose to this person? Or what was theirs to mine? For example, I mentioned earlier my mother had patience, and I feel one of her purposes for me spiritually was to teach me patience. My spiritual purpose for her was to teach her not to do things all by herself and to open up when you hurt. Um, and she validates whenever I do that in life. Like I'll do that with my siblings or whatever. I'm like, tell me how you're feeling. Don't keep it in. My mother kept her hurt in, even though she was patient. She never dumped it on anyone. But that did have an impact on her physically and her kids because we knew something was, she was hurt, but she would never share it. She was always upbeat and happy, but not on the inside. Um, so when I show her my spiritual purpose, she'll send me a sign. Oh, thanks for showing me that it's okay to share how you feel. Or, gee, mom, I'm standing in line right now. I'm getting really frustrated. I want to plug into you for your patience. Give me something to say that will brighten the store clerk's day, because they're obviously stressed out because we've been standing here a long time. And I find that when I do, that's just an example. When I do that, mom will send me a sign. They say, good job. So spiritual purpose links you spirit to spirit. You see what I mean? It's like you're meeting them on a bridge saying, here's what we have. We're sharing together. Here we go. The other spirit to spirit communication, once you have an intention, you're in a meditative state, is to visualize, use clairvoyance, and go to a place that you wish you could be with them physically. Maybe you'll think it's a memory. Oh, yeah, we used to go fishing, or we used to go to the beach, or I go to my mother's kitchen. And it's very surprising how she'll dot it with new places that are new things that, oh, why are you showing me that? Like an example I give happened a couple of months ago is I went to my mother's kitchen and she said something different that she hasn't said in a long time. As a matter of fact, I can't ever remember her saying it. She said, "Hey, you want some coffee?" Now, that might sound like something in common, but I had totally forgotten about my mother's coffee. My dad's still with us. He's Italian. My mother was French and Polish. Her idea of making an espresso was putting too much Maxwell House coffee into a Mr. Coffee machine. It was very bitter and very hard to drink. I'd do anything to have that coffee today, but it wasn't the best. So I kept that in my heart, in my head. I'm like, why is she talking about her coffee? So I didn't even put two and two together at the moment. But the next day, I was slated to meet my sister at Starbucks. My sister takes a drink of her coffee. It's perfect. I take a drink of mine. It's horrific. And I'm looking at this coffee starting to like tear up. And my sister's like, what? Is the coffee that bad? And then I shared the story of my meditation. And she goes, of course, mom knows we're meeting because we're talking about our sister who's struggling. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. And I can tell you, because my mother's been gone since 2004. It's been quite a while. I still miss her. See, that shows you grief never goes away. But I've learned to manage some of my grief. Nothing wrong with that. That's what spirit wants. There's nothing wrong with that. But we decided as siblings, let's really bring mom into this communication because I feel like she wants to give us advice. And we started to recall things that she would say to our sister that we'd forgotten about, just like I forgot about the coffee. So mom had an agenda. She wanted to be part of that coffee meeting. So that's how it could work. So I want to encourage you to either or do both. Figure out the spiritual purpose, go to a place that you love being with that person you're missing. Have an intention to speak to that one person and bring some questions and then sit quietly. What are you feeling? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? What are you picking up on? That when you see that penny on the ground, there's more around it. You look up and go, wait a minute, there's the first hello. You want me to pay attention? And you'll look around and you'll see the answer of what they were trying to say to you. And it becomes a conversation that way. And also, even though I do anything to have my mother walk through the door right now, which can't happen, that helps me feel her presence every day or when I want to feel her presence. So I want to encourage you to try spirit to spirit communication. I hope that helps you and makes sense. So meeting them where they are is a very important thing. And that's going to help you become a better medium. To be a better psychic to yourself, the technique is the same, but you're meeting up with yourself. How can I explain that? We're a tripart being. We have a physicality, we have a soul, we have a spirit. You want to meet up with your spirit. Meeting up with your true self. There was a wonderful, some of you might have heard me speak of this before. I'm just going to bring up a couple of questions. Bear with me. Some of you may have heard me speak of Peter Gable before, but he was a spiritual lawyer here. Quite, he's since passed. He was quite, he was a phenomenal human being. Very intelligent, very philosophical. And he wrote a book called The Desire for Mutual Recognition. And he speaks about the true self and the false self. The true self being the spiritual self, and the false self, not that you're a falsehood, but when we're part of a system called physicality, we find ourselves falling into roles a lot. You know, we feel somewhat blocked, that we can't be ourselves all the time, or we're reserved, or we're in a library, we have to be quiet. We walk down the street, meet a stranger, we look down because we don't think we'll have acceptance. But he speaks about honoring the true self because we all have a need for one another. And that need can create a ricochet effect to do good things on this planet. I mean, that's just the surface of what he wrote about because he is brilliant. So the idea of psychic work for yourself would involve using Peter's words, because he helped me take the non-physical aspects of my work and help make some of it verbiage or words, like the spirit being the true self, or the physicality of who we are being a false self of sorts. Um, so the idea of being intuitive means having an intention. What do I want to attract today? Um, how can I be more focused on tuning in to my surroundings so when they eventually get to my brain, I make good decisions to attract what I want? Meditating on it, praying on it, daydreaming on it, and tuning into that and deciphering, is that my true self? Or am I kind of eliciting my false self here? And so when I'm going into that job interview, they're not really sensing my passion or my courageousness or whatever tools you would need to feel the contentment, which is a part of the spirit, and the peace of why we're here and what we're meant to have here. I truly believe we're meant to have a balance because we're still physical. So to have the gifts of the spirit of love, patience, kindness, forgiveness, contentment, meekness, happiness, joy. I'm sorry, joy, happiness lives in the body. It's a physiological reaction. I'm happy. I'm eating chocolate. Um, that does make me happy. But joy to me is a spiritual principle. Intelligence lives in the brain. Wisdom lives in your spirit. So there's differences. And once you understand and identify that purpose, just like there's a spiritual purpose with someone in spirit, once you identify your spiritual purpose, I need to be more peaceful here, or I'd like to feel contentment, or I want to feel joy or courageousness, love, happiness. I'm sorry, happiness is physical. I do that all the time. But I hope that makes sense. And the more you practice this, as you go out in the world, it's not always going to be reactionary. Oh, I'm mad at them or I'm jealous. It's more, okay, hold on. I'm having a reaction, however. Let me tune in. Why am I being shown this? And how can I use it to attract what I need at this moment? The more you do that, you'll have a clarity. If that clarity exists every day, that's when you start seeing the future because there's no gunk in the way. I hope I made that clear because if there's gunk in the way and you can't even get through today, how are you going to see the future? So the more you experience intuitiveness in the moment, that shows you that you're starting to manufacture an attraction of what you desire versus what I want. I want this. I want that. Well, desire comes from, I'm going to work on trying to attract that. I hope that makes sense. Got some great questions here, and thank you all for listening. Um, they're really good. So let me see if I could pull them up. I'm going to do that one last, I think. Good question from Shadella. And I feel really bad. I was so sick. I couldn't be here the first time because there were a lot of people signed up, and I fear she was one of them. I'm sorry she's not here to listen. But her question is, it's a good one. Do spirits age if you transition at that age? Do you remain that age forever? In my humble opinion, no. I believe, and I think I said it earlier, my mother shows herself to me younger. The mom I remember when I was 7 years old. I believe fully that even though our physical body dies, we can recreate our bodies in heaven and we can visit, revisit, experience different parts of our life that we had here. And depending on whether or not you believe in reincarnation, have an understanding of our other lives. Um, that's why we meet up with people when we pass, because they're holding on to a lot of spiritual DNA and knowledge for us. There have been so many sessions I've done where someone will say, oh, I met up with so-and-so and he told me about the family so-and-so. And they're like, I don't know about that person. And then they'll go check the family lineage and they're there. And science looks at that as evidence. If I come up or if spirit shares with me something, that the living, grieving person didn't know about, but spirit knows about it, and it's true, it proves something happening there in an afterlife because they've gained knowledge that the family didn't even know about. Um, so I believe you have the ability to recreate your body at different parts of your life. I'm getting the sense, although she can change it any way she wants, that when I pass, I'm going to meet up with that 27-year-old mom. You know, I pictured meeting up with the 59-year-old mom that I last saw. See, we always think of them the last time we saw them, which is normal. But that's very, well, in my case, it was very traumatic to see my mother very sick. It still haunts me. She was a very beautiful person. Um, but I'm starting to suspect she's making herself younger because that's how she's showing herself to me. And I've seen situations too happen where, let's say somebody, which is horrible, lost a child. Let's say at age, God forbid, 2. And let's say I say, oh, I've got a child here. They're coming through and they're about 8 years old. And they're like, no, that's too old. And then we do the math. They would have been 8 years old if they had lived. So sometimes that happens too. And people want me to say, well, it's this way or that way. They're individuals too. They can do anything they want. They can show themselves at 59, 27, 8 years old. And that's what makes the job of a medium sometimes pressing or difficult. You're welcome. Thank you, David. We're going to be closing things up anyway, but thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Oh, I hope your dog is better. Oh, dog is sick. That's too bad. Um, I hope the dog gets better too. But we're almost done here. Okay. 2 more questions, um, which is a good one. Let's see. Melissa asks, how do I know what my strongest ability is, either psychically or metaphysically, and how can I easily access it? This is very important. In a nutshell, if you are a person who tends to be very empathic, very sensitive towards others, I would say your strongest sense to start working on your ability would be clairsentience, the ability to feel. If you are a wordsmith, you're really good at languages, um, you're a good listener, I would say start with clear audience, clear hearing. If you are very artistic, visual, creative, you like how things are placed, you like color, start with clairvoyance. Doesn't that make sense? So what I want you to be thinking about is, what is your strongest abilities? Are you more empathic? Are you a wordsmith or technically focused? Are you visual? Start there. And even if you want to work with your loved ones, start with that one ability first, if it helps you, um, rather than trying to do all 5 all at once. It's totally your choice. I started out with clairsentient when I was first training myself and then going to psychic fairs on Long Island. I would just work with, I feel this, I feel that, I feel this, I feel that. And then I asked my guides, well, let me start hearing or seeing things. And it slowly started to develop where I was getting the whole picture. So I started one at a time, and it really was very helpful. Okay, one last question. Can you talk about the difference between our loved ones who have passed and spirits? When we work with you to connect with a loved one who has passed, are we connecting with their souls, which is different than their spirits? Um, that's a very good question. I believe when we're here, we have a physical brain and we can make a choice. Do we want to connect to our soulful purpose here? Do we want to be soulful as we're speaking to people? We're depositing the positive within us. So when somebody comes through, they are a whole spirit, which has love, patience, kindness, forgiveness, self control, joy, happiness, all these beautiful things. But sometimes they can speak about their soul. This is what I learned here, or I didn't learn this. And sometimes they'll also make me feel their personality, which is physical. So as a practitioner, I have to be very aware of, because you'll, if you're missing someone, you'll know their personality. You'll know, hopefully investigate what their soulful purpose is, or maybe they might tell you in a meditation. But for myself, I always have to delineate the difference. For example, I was working with a lovely woman the other day, and her loved one, the first thing they said was, I was a very difficult person. I was a difficult person. And she goes, yes, he is. I go, he said he was. She didn't catch the nuance. And then he went about complimenting her, telling her nice things. He goes, that doesn't sound like them. I go, he said he was a difficult person. Now he's trying to show you that he has transitioned into the gifts of spirit. And he did validate more of why he was difficult, um, so that you can connect to him. She goes, well, yeah, I've been feeling blocked because if I couldn't communicate to him when he was here as a difficult person, how am I going to do it now that he's dead? Like, that's what she said. And she's angry from grief. I understand that. And I said, well, that's the very reason why he's coming through, so that you can see him as spirit, even though you don't want to physically. If you see that he's gone through the transition, his job now, he's tasked with, when I did my life review through her, I realized I wasn't a good person. Now I have to work on that. Just like my mom had stage 4 cancer, I keep on picturing her with stage 4 cancer. She's not that way anymore. That's why she's trying to show me as a 27-year-old. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Well, I want to thank you for joining me. I hope that this, oh, she's got a great question. I can answer that real quick. Let's see. Are there any techniques to connect with spirits that have left a long time ago versus spirits? Um, Lori, I have to tell you that there's no difference. Um, in the years that they've been gone, the difference is always in us. So the technique would be to release your mind of the fact that, well, I don't feel them anymore because they passed so long ago. What we tend to do when we're grieving is we're feeling the rush of the desire, I need to communicate with you, because we feel bad. And after we learn to manage our grief, we kind of, it's not that we never want to hear from them, but we kind of slip back into the physical world, and it's us that lose contact with them. They never lose contact with us. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps. But I do thank you, Lori. But thank you so much for joining me. And I know in February I'm going to be planning some reading events on Zoom. So I hope you can join me. So hopefully we can do some readings next time. But thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a um, connective moments with your loved ones if you're missing them. So thank you for being here. Take good care.